I know that my parents were as firm as they knew how to be, that we were at church all the time. I loved everything that I did here. I definitely loved the atmosphere. I just think that well, for me personally, I think I had a resistance to authority. And once I was away from home, I thought that I was the authority of my life. I became a flight attendant, which was a dream job for me. It was just perfect because anybody that loves to talk as much as I do would love to have that job, and so that was good for me. And it had a very flexible schedule. I loved that too. And I was very happy doing that job. I loved the traveling aspect of it. And, you know, none of that had room for God. It was just like I was saying before, it was all about Karen and what Karen wanted. And, but I did not have success in terms of marriage. I didn't marry anybody at that time. And I also didn't really care because I was just really glad to be, you know, living the dream. And that was my dream, to do everything that I wanted to do. And I also started drinking. And the drinking, even though it started out as just a little bit of a, you know, loosen up kind of thing, slowly but surely over, you know, about 15 years, it had turned into more like a real habit. And I wasn't even at the point in my life then where I was willing to say that it was a habit that I personally could not kick. I thought I could. Roger and I actually met in college, and we didn't get married for about 17 years. So we were in and out of each other's lives for 17 years or so, around that much time. And you know, he didn't see me as a Christian at all, and he didn't see me as an example of a good Christian. He might have known that I grew up in church, but that didn't really mean anything to him either, because he didn't grow up in church, so he had no expectation of what church was supposed to be like. We got married. A couple years later, we had Tessa, and when we had Tessa, that's when things really started to change for me, because I kept remembering how it was growing up here in this church, and it was the security and the love that I was surrounded by. You know, I just wanted that for my child, and I wanted her to have, you know, a lot of things had changed from the 50s to now the 80s, and I didn't feel like the world was a secure place, but I remembered church as a secure place, and that's what I wanted for her. And so I started having this longing to get back in church. And since we didn't go to church, we always went out to breakfast on Sunday morning. And every time we would drive to breakfast, we would go past all these churches, and their parking lots would be filled with happy people. And I would see them, and tears would just start to slide down my face. And I was so overcome with this longing to be joining those people. But I knew that with Roger, that just didn't seem like that was going to happen. So I would turn my face to the window away from him so that he would not see that I was crying. And eventually, I just felt that I had to tell him how I was feeling. So I did, and he was just, well, okay, if that's what you want, that's fine, but, you know, I'll be here at the house. I don't have any need for God, and I don't see any sense in it, so I won't be going. One day I was driving to work, and I was, you know, bemoaning the fact that Roger still wasn't saved, and this lady came on an interview that I was listening to, like Focus on the Family or something, and the person who was interviewing her said, so is your husband here with you today? And she said, he is, yeah. And the man said, tell us a little bit about your relationship. And she said, well, it's actually pretty good now. He got saved recently, so, and the guy said, he did? And she said, yeah, 18 years of us praying for him, and he finally got saved. And I was listening to that, and I thought, 18 years, gosh, do I have the patience and stamina for 18 years? That's when I started thinking, I really am not running my life at all. God is. And it's like, but I wasn't sure that I liked that, but I did recognize it, So anyway, that's how that came about. And then Roger did start going with us to church. And he eventually, after about 8 years there, he became a Christian, and he was baptized in that church. And Tessa and I stood in the baptismal waters with him. And he became a deacon at that church. And we had a very, very good life there. And I knew by then that one of the things that was missing from my life was that I was doing all these things, and all these things were the right things to do, and I felt like we were raising our girls correctly, but I had never come to the place where I was accepting of my own sin. And I knew, I knew that I believed in God. I knew that I believed in Jesus. I understood all the, washed white as snow by the blood of Jesus. I understood all that, but I had only I didn't realize the enormity of my sin in comparison to the 9-year-old me that originally accepted Christ to the 30-some-year-old who had done all these things in the interim period. And not like everybody's sin has to be monumental, but I was not recognizing basically any sin, or not recognizing, but not taking responsibility for any of my sins. And when I came to that place, I knew that was a step I needed to take. So anyway, I got baptized at that church, and that just started us all off again on a nice roll of good changes, good things happening, and that was all good too, because later on then, Roger had Alzheimer's, was diagnosed, and our life changed again. To think now back on that and recognize that God put up with every single second of that from me, and not only did he put up with it, but he orchestrated life around me to bring me to the place where I saw, and sometimes years later, I saw the steps that he provided for me. That is his mercy. My name is Karen Varney, and this is my faith story.